Welcome to PausePoint, the podcast, your ultimate destination for reclaiming your time, revitalizing your spirit, and saying no to burnout. I'm Felicia Wiley, CEO and founder of PausePoint, and I'm here to ignite your journey towards a more balanced and mindful life. Join us each week as we delve into practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice designed to integrate mindfulness into your daily life. We'll explore mental health tips, discover ways to strengthen work-life balance, and find methods to reduce your stress. Whether you're new to mindfulness or seeking to deepen your practice, we're here to spark action. It's time to reclaim our time, take more breaks, and infuse our lives with moments of peace and rejuvenation. Join us starting July 15th for our debut season, where we'll share practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice to help you thrive in today's fast-paced world. Let's create a mindful world, one pause at a time. In this episode of PausePoint the podcast, I sit down with growth coach Ashna Patel to explore her journey toward burnout prevention and mindfulness. Ashna shares insights on maintaining well-being, achieving work-life balance, and enhancing career development. She emphasizes the importance of reflecting on personal values, creating a system of beneficial habits, and embracing deep work. Additionally, Ashna discusses how treating employees as customers can cultivate an empathetic and supportive work environment. Ashna, welcome to PausePoint, the podcast. We are very happy to have you. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know we've talked about this before quite a bit, but everything that you're doing with PausePoint, it's very close to my heart. So I'm so excited to be here. And a little bit about me. I am a formal CS leader turned marketer. I'm also a growth coach. I help people with career and personal development, coaching and advancement, and very much focused on well-being, work-life balance, burnout management. So it's in my zone, I would say. So that's a little bit about me. I've had over 10 years of personal, like a professional experience, work experience, and then I'm just excited to be here.
And we're so happy to have you. It's been a couple of months in the making, but what got you interested in burnout prevention?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I was always been so close to topics that were related to, I would say, personal development and just being overall. And over the course of my professional experiences, it's something I feel like everybody at this point has probably have seen some level of burnout in their lives. It's just the world that we live in and, that we are. And I've also gone through that a couple of times actually. And I am more the person that likes to dig into the why. And I know we always talk about burnout is different for everyone, which I believe in that, but it's also, I'm more like, why does it happen? Or like, what's below the surface that we're not seeing? And the more I got into it, and I became a lot more the person that got into mindfulness practices, meditations, and yoga, and you name it. Like I've journaling. It's like I've gone through all of that, and it brought me more and more closer to reflecting and understanding what's going on when people are burnt out and why does it really happen and in a different ways that it happened. So it just got me so interested. And then I read books on it and I started doing this podcast, things like this. And it's a topic close to my heart. I don't think I've mastered it. I don't think I can ever, but there's so much to it, and it's so obvious that there's so many people who are going through with it right now. So it's part of me. I also want to, from a health standpoint, like I want to help people because I know I've gone through with this, and I may go through with it again tomorrow too, because it's like the way the world is changing. So that's why I'm involved in this, and I just want to support people.
And I want to second what you said, where just like life, it's a work in progress, and the only thing that you can do is work every day to make small improvements in your life. And all of the mindfulness techniques that you mentioned, whether it was meditation and yoga, journaling, these are all the small building blocks that the more you repeat it, the more you add on, the stronger your foundation gets.
Yeah, you're so right. It's also what makes you happy. I know we've talked about this before. I'm a big believer of like Ikigai and finding purpose in life, and it's just you have to know, you have to figure out what are those small little things throughout the day that makes you happy because and learn to enjoy those, learn to respect those things. And it's just, just because something happened and you were happy for a second and just move on. No, savor those moments because that's what helps you get through the day. And that's what actually help you get away from burnout because you'll learn to put your energy into things that makes you happy, that makes you who you are, that aligns with your values. I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself right now. Burnout is, yes, especially when it happened, it's there's so much that you can that you as an individual can do, but also at the same time, you have to focus on what you can't control. What is that you have control over? Because once you start to realize that and start to work on those, you see the shift that starts to happen. Whether you're burned out or you feel like you're just got so much on your plate or you don't have enough time, whatever that may be, it's we have to focus on the things that we have.
And I actually want to go back because you did mention Ikigai.
Yeah.
What are some of the small things that make you happy?
Oh my God. I'm such a like a nerd. I don't nerd is probably not even the right word, but it's like smallest little thing. Craziest. The other day, I'll tell you this. The other day I was just watching random videos on my YouTube. I love cooking and I love watching cooking videos. And for whatever reasons, people chopping vegetables on the video, it makes me so happy. I don't know why. But I was telling my husband, I was like, I just realized that this actually makes me really happy. So sometimes when I'm really tense or I have like an hour long meeting or something, I will randomly open up my video on YouTube and just watch a bunch of people just cooking or something because it makes me happy. So it's like small, that's just one example, but it's like taking a walk outside or listening to my favorite song. Or I oftentimes, 90% of the time, I have a soothing music playing in my background in my office. So something like that makes me happy. Cooking, like after a long day of work, I just want to get into my kitchen, put on a music, and I just prepare something. I love that. So it's like small little things that it's me. But I think what it is a little bit of a me time that I can get throughout the day makes me happy. So it's in the morning when I'm journaling or just being with myself or just taking a walk. Yes, I'd like to, when I talk to my family and friends and things like that, it also makes me happy. But it's like when I know that I've had my cup of me time in a day, I know that I'm going to have a day, whether it's even if it's a stressful day, it's going to be like it's going to feel like it's a productive day because that's what makes me happy.
I love that. No, and when you started talking about the cooking videos, the first thing that my mind went to, have you watched Nara Smith's videos?
I probably have. I probably don't know the name, but I probably have because I feel like I've probably broken YouTube by watching YouTube videos, and I saved so many, so many.
She's very popular on Instagram right now because she does like a soothing voiceover of her like cooking. So it's not necessarily like the chopping blocks, but I'll actually send you some videos later. You may like them.
Please.
So
I would love that.
And correct me if I'm wrong. For Ikigai, is there a block where it's find what you love and then try to get paid for that?
Yes. So it's what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and I think I forgot the fourth one. But it's like there's four kind of like the things, and then they interconnect with each other. What you're good at and what you love is something, and then it's just what the world needs and what you can get paid for, and so that's what it is, and that's what the purpose of life is. Basically, it aligns with all of those when they're interconnected. So it's really about it's a great exercise. I'd recommend everybody to do that exercise because and I've done it multiple times, and you can find different answers of those exercises when you do it, maybe at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year, because a lot can change in just 1 year. And I'm just talking about 1 year, but it's a great exercise, but it also grounds you and makes you want to reflect on things that you do and what you're good at and what you really love. Because a lot of the times, what we think is that what we can get paid for is what we love and what we're good at, but it's not. Sometimes it's completely different, and that's okay that you're getting paid at for something that you don't enjoy. But that the question is, are you giving yourself time to do what you love? Because that's what's going to help fill that cup that happiness cup in your life. And that's what's going to help you prevent burnout, because otherwise it's just going to feel like you're in a rut just doing
Yeah.
something that you just don't enjoy.
And how do you guide your clients to that intersection?
It's I talk about building your own system a lot, and it's just like reflection is a big part of that. And when I work with, whether it's working with my clients or when I led my teams, like with my team members, or just in general, like if I'm talking to a friend or whatnot, it's just I always put a lot of pressure on. We're different individuals, and so we have to first acknowledge that, and second, it's we have to reflection plays such a big role, and it's I'm not just saying everybody needs to, sit down with a piece of paper every single day and just reflect. But it's a lot about you taking a moment to just reflect and ask yourself a couple of questions. And that could just be like, could I have done something differently during this time? Or what did I learn from this? Or what was the one thing that I did today that actually made me happy? And because we don't take this time to reflect and realize those shifts that are happening throughout their day, throughout their lives. And so when I just work with people in general, talk about this, I ask them to let's create a system when you're reflecting first, because you have to understand what's working and what's not working. And that's what I have them do. Is let's kind of go back and look at what's working, what's not working. And if it's not working, why is it not working? And then let's figure out, okay, out of those things that are not working, what are the things that you actually have control over? And what are the things that you actually don't have control over? Because a lot of the time what happens is that we whine and complain about the things that we just don't have control over. And so what's the point? It's not going to change. We're not going to be able to change it. So let's focus on the things that we can change. And that could result into introducing a couple of good habits, which is why I even refer Atomic Habits book quite a bit. Amazing book. If you haven't read it, I recommend everybody to read it, because it talks a whole lot about having those good habits in your life. So it's what are those habits? Because those habits are going to be your motivation to wake up and do those things. And even when I work with people that are burned out, and this is what we actually get to, is okay, how can I introduce some of those habits that's going to make me happy? And then I can take myself away from the things that are actually making me want to pull my hair apart, basically. That's what it is. And I'm not saying like it works for everyone, it's different for everyone. But that's usually the process. Let's dig deeper, figure it out, and then we can get to the next point.
And from what I'm hearing, Ikigai, building your own system, being able to reflect and really ask yourself questions and get to know yourself, a lot of these ideas and concepts, they're rooted in alignment.
Yes.
So it's like if you want to build healthy habits, but you don't really know who you are and you don't sit down with yourself and ask yourself the questions, how are you supposed to know what you care about, know what you love to do, what makes you happy, and how are you supposed to know like what habits are, when to like instill new habits and how to instill those new habits?
You're so right. It's what are my values? What matters to me? And anything and everything that I'm doing, does it align with those values? Because I will tell you 9.9 out of 10 of the times it's going to come down to those misalignment with your values. When you're like, I don't want to do this and I'm doing this, and that's going to create distractions. You lose focus, and that's going to go down to the section, like the amount of work that you're going to be able to finish in 1 hour, it's taking you 4 hours. You feel like you have so much on your plate, and then you're going to feel like you're burnt out. But if you dig deeper, it's going to come back to it's taking you 4 hours, maybe because you don't want to do this, and you don't want to do this, maybe because it's not really aligned with who you are. Now, it's hard for me to sit here and just say this, because it's like it's easy to say than to get things done. Obviously, it's hard, but it's never about what you're doing, what you're not doing. It's about, okay, if this isn't working for you, then how can you create a system or a place or whatever you want to call it, so that you can get out of it. So I think that's where it is. And that's why, like you said, it's so important for you to know, are you really aligned with your own values or what matters to you in life? And just to be frank, it can change over time.
Yeah.
It can change over time. We're an individual, we evolve every single day, every possibly seconds that we live. and breathe. And it's okay. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Those things can change. So it's just, and that's why it's not something like I'm going to value my value once and I'm just going to figure it out. And then that's going to be, no, that's why, like I said, Ikigai, all these practices, like habits and things like that, we have to have a kind of like a system created so that we are reevaluating this over time, because that's going to help us be like, okay, this used to be amazing and so important for me. But as I grew, it's no longer important, or it's not as the same capacity importance it used to be important for me. Okay, what can I do to change it and focus on the things that are important for me right now? That's the power right there.
No, that is actually really amazing that you're pointing that out, because as humans, we are supposed to be changing and we are supposed to be evolving. And if you're the same person that you were 4 years ago, I would strongly urge you, like, ask yourself why. Are you just, and some people, it's very easy to get into like, those routines where you would just have certain things to do. And I think it also changes generationally, where you have like certain seasons. So if you are a new parent, you're now in the season of taking care of a newborn baby, and you're going to be taking care of that child for now like 18 years. So maybe you establish some routines and your new focus isn't really on you, it's on the child. But it's, you can always reevaluate who you are, where you are. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you can also, it makes it easier for you to say yes and no to certain things.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I know I mentioned earlier about me time. It's that me time gets you closer to who you are and what you are. And this me time can be different for every individual. But I think that's where you have to evaluate. You have to, and you have to be open to accepting the reality and just, okay, this is where things are, and that's okay, and this is where I need to get to, and this is how I'm going to do it. And for that, I need to make these certain changes and introduce new habits in life, introduce certain new things, whatever that may be. But that change, I know change is scary, but that change can actually help a lot of the people go through with some of these things, because change can be actually motivating sometimes. I think that's what people don't realize. We always put this change as scary. I don't want to change, but it can be motivating if you actually put it in the right place, in the right way.
If you put in the right place, you set out with intention, and you also just put in the work and you make small incremental steps. It's all about those baby steps. And even this entire, everything that we're talking about, you mentioned being an advocate for one life where you play different roles.
Yeah.
I feel like this also would go back to the different seasons of one's life, but also in each role you play, your needs and your values in that role might be slightly different.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, because, and that's where the word balance comes in place, because then it's not about work and life balance. It's about those roles that you're playing in different parts of your life. And that's what you have to balance it out, because if you're putting 100% in something or 110% in one role that you're playing, but at the same time, you're not even 20 or 30% in some others, then there's going to be that misbalance. Then even if you're achieving so much in one place, you're not going to feel that achievement, because it's not balanced well. And that could be, and I know I'm talking about this, that could be just between, maybe you're advancing your career, but you're maybe at certain points in life, you're not advancing as advancement can be different. Definition of advancement could be different for different people. But I think I don't want to get into too much of an example, but that's what I'm trying to give an idea of. It's like the balance, like only you is, as an individual, know what the true balance is for you. And you have to first understand that, acknowledge that, and then figure out, okay, what can I be doing now? So one of the things that I always say is also, it's never about if you can do something or if you cannot do something. It's always about, should you be doing that right now? And if that makes sense, it's never, I am capable of doing so many things. That doesn't mean that I should be doing all of those things at the same time or right now. It's also about, should I be doing that right now with everything that's going on in my life? And is this the right time for me to do this? And so and only you can know the answer to that. So know that answer, acknowledge that answer, respect that answer and go with it. And I think that's what I always advise people, is that it's not about if you can or cannot do it. It's about should you be doing that right now.
Yeah, it's like life is nothing but a balancing act. One, we only have 24 hours in the day, and we still need to sleep, eat, work, unfortunately. And we still have to try to find time where, whether it's like socializing, hanging out, spending time with family, and even taking that time and like throwing it over the course of a month. I've actually done this exercise where I calculated how I was spending every single hour of my day. It was a Tim Ferriss recommendation. And
Wow.
I realized, I was like, oh, I actually have not really spent that much time with my family. But I always thought that one of my core values was like quality time with family. So how could I say that if it's not actually reflecting in my day to day, my week to week, or my month to month? So I knew that I had
Exactly.
to make some adjustments to my own schedule in order to add more time for family.
Yeah, that's amazing. First of all, I love that you did that, and I think that's where it's like when we talk about burnout, a lot of the times what happens with the prioritization comes in place. Are you prioritizing your time management? It comes in place. And one of the questions that I always ask is, when you think about prioritization, are you only thinking about how do I prioritize my work schedule, or are you actually thinking about prioritizing my schedule, as in me as a whole? And a lot of the time, when we are talking about burnout and other things, we're disregarding that whole me portion of it. And we're just like, I need to prioritize what I'm doing with work or this or that. And we're taking bits and pieces of life, and I need to prioritize this. And I'm like, nope, you got to prioritize it all, because that's when you can give your, that full, like you said, it's like if you had not done that kind of an exercise, you wouldn't even know that you weren't spending enough time that you wanted to spend with people. Like, you meant well, you wanted to do it, you just didn't even know that you were not doing it, because that wasn't even part of your kind of, I need to dig into this and figure this out and whatnot. So I think that's what I and then again, it's not something you need to do it every day, but it is something that you need to be like conscious about. Am I spending the time that I need to be doing the things that I need that makes me happy? Because if you're happy, you're going to amplify that happiness around you, and that's going to make others happy. And it's just, I don't know what the scientific word for it, but it's just like you're I'm not in science, but there is a word for it. You need to, it's like mirrors. You're mirroring those things. And so what it really comes down to, understand yourself, really understand yourself, reflect on things, and then have that open communication with yourself too. It's just, and that is what you did. It's in your case too. And when you have that communication, then you can dig deeper, and then you can figure out, okay, what are the places that I need to shift?
And what's crazy too is life goes by fast, and we're already in August.
I know. Can you believe that?
The year's almost over. Imagine if I had gone 3 more months without doing that exercise. That would have been 3 months of me doing the same thing that I was already doing, thinking that I was prioritizing my family, but the data is actually saying something completely else. And that would have been 3 months that I lost. And when I am on my deathbed, sorry to get morbid, I don't want to look back on my life and be like, I should have done that. Or, wow, I didn't spend any time with like my mom. I want to be able to be like, yeah, prioritized her.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. It's because when I was journaling this morning, I'm not lying. One of the things that I wrote is, I think, what am I leaving behind? What legacy will I be? What legacy am I keeping behind or leaving behind, basically? So I started to think about some of those similar things. Is okay, one time, again, sorry for being morbid here, but when I'm on my deathbed, it's what am I leaving behind? And it's not just, oh, I achieved this and that. It's just no, but it's for what I achieved is for someone else to celebrate. But it's like when I say what I'm leaving behind, it's I need to be able to say, oh, I've lived a life when I have actually given time to my family, or I did this, or I did that. And it's just different for everyone. And again, different seasons of life for people. You could be going through a whole lot of things right now, but it's just be okay, embrace that, accept the reality, and then you figure out, okay, now if that is something that I want to achieve, what are the two things or one thing that I can do today that's going to get me 1% closer to whatever else that I'm trying to achieve? Because then you can be on your deathbed and be like, even if you haven't achieved whatever that you wanted to achieve, you can still be like, okay, it's okay. I still tried. I did my best and I tried and I put everything that I needed to. And I did everything that I wanted to. So I think it's a mindset shift. I feel
Yeah.
like that's we need to have.
And so we talked about prioritization, we've talked about
Yeah.
Ikigai, we've talked about like the one life and the different roles, and then you also mentioned like the building your own system. I want to shift over into the professional setting because you did mention being an advocate for treating employees as like the first customer. What does that
Yeah.
concept mean to you?
Yeah. So I always, your employees are your first customer. And I believe in that because they're the people, they're the face of of an organization. They're putting not just, they're not just putting words out there for your company, but also they're the people that's going to represent your organization. If your customer was going through something, how would you treat them? That's my always a question. And if it's going to be starting a lot of the time, people in like, I've been in customer success for long enough that I can say you start with being empathetic. So same thing, the people that are actually representing an organization are doing the hard work day in, day out, learning and growing and putting the name of your company out there. That should also be like you treat them as your customers. They are your first customers because if you make them successful, they're going to make your customers successful and that's going to help your organization. And I think that's the kind of like the mentality and that's the mindset that I have. And I've been fortunate enough to work for organizations that where this mindset is put in front. Even in my current organization, one of our value right now, the first value is people first. And we try to live by that in and out. But it's that's the concept. It's keep understand make sure you understand that your employees are your first customers.
Yeah.
And so you have your responsibility not just to make your customers successful, you have to make your employees successful too. And for that, you have to understand, different personas, different people, different are your leaders equipped with what they need to be to understand what your employees need because they're the one that's going to help them whether to grow in their career, whether to help them guide them through in the day to day, whatever that may be. And that goes hand in hand. I'm not saying like every employee is to come to work with their emotional baggage or whatnot, but it's if you have that, are you creating an environment where you can openly say that, hey, I'm going through this right now and I need this much of space and can work this out with your manager? So then, and if not, then maybe that's where we'll need to do the work because that's when then employees go back and they feel like they're not well supported.
Yeah. No,
Helps.
it makes perfect sense. Like just treat your employees as people and not like robots. We're not there. We're not like hamsters on like little spinning wheel. We are people. We have different personalities like you mentioned. We have lives and our lives like can impact our work. But if you look at your employee as like a human first, you understand that hey, that just because they have this something going on with them, they're still a person and it's okay to let them be a human at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I think it also works both ways too. And employees also need to understand that if you're vocal and if you're being authentic and real about what is going on, but then at the same time, you're showing your willingness to do the work that needed to be done to make your role to be successful so that your organization then can be successful. If that goes in, like it reflects, organizations will see, leaders will see, executives will see that. It's like it works both ways. You can't just be like asking something but not giving back in return at that help. So it's communication is the key. I think that's what I would end it on this topic. Create an environment as an organization, as a leader, create an environment so that your employees can have that open communication with you. And as an individual, be real, be authentic, bring your super authentic self to the table so that you can have that open communication, which is only going to make things easier for both parties.
Yeah, and on the complete opposite end, if you're an organization and you lack that authenticity, that empathy, I feel like that directly contributes to employee burnout.
Yes, it does. It does because values, alignment, being, am I getting acknowledged for the work that I'm doing? And those are some of the things that it's like, it adds up. It
Yeah.
may not look like that it's the only thing, but it adds up because then it eventually you're going to feel like, why am I working so hard if it doesn't really matter to anyone? You know what I mean? That thought can come across, and that can be one of those early signs of burnout, because that's going to get you down to the road of, I don't enjoy what I'm doing because I'm not getting that acknowledgement or like recognition that I need. And it just recognition could just be like just getting a job well done from your manager when you're doing a good job. So it's not, I'm not saying go on a stage and celebrate whatever. It can be different for people. So I think it's like some of those things can add up, but you're so right. It plays a big role in it.
And I also feel there are generational divides with what we expect from work. Do you experience this in some of the clients that you work with?
There is, I feel, but especially if you think about even in the last decade, the way that the work culture, work environment has evolved, especially after COVID, during COVID, and now with this introduction and crazy advancement of AI coming into place. And I know I want to mention this because there is that divide. It is changing, but at the same time, what we talked about, change, the organization has to change, people has to change. And I think that's where I bring back is, remember that you're working with people on the other end, and different people have different personas and they're going through different phases in life. And so if we all can just be a little bit more empathetic towards one another, I think that can really help solve a lot of problems. And that's just maybe me optimistically speaking, because I'm an emotional fool to some capacity. But I'm just saying that is there. We need to just understand one another, and just be vocal about, okay, these are the things that I can do or cannot do. And I know it's easier said than done, but because that divide, I feel like generational divide is going to be there, because it's also who's going to tell someone that there is that. And even if someone does make a point of, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get changed, or it's like, it's there. The shift is there. Also with sorry, I'm bringing this up, but like with the increase of like social media and like other factors, external factors that can play a role in it, the world has changed so much. The work cultures has changed so much.
Yeah.
And so that changes. In 10 years, I've seen a complete shift in work culture. And I can't even imagine what the next 10 years is going to be like.
Oh, don't
honestly.
say that. I'm scared.
Oh no, I don't think it's that way, but I don't know. I feel like it can sound scary, but I'm saying it more from, it can be positive if you make it positive for you. So it's learn to just accept the reality and go with the flow. Focus on the things that you can control. That's what I'm trying to get
There
to.
you go.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense. If I stay in the here and the now, the only thing I can focus on is like the work that I can do, and maybe I can do more studying so that I could actually be able to compete against whatever AI models decide to take my job.
There you go. There you go. And they're not going to take your jobs.
No, actually, they won't.
Make it easier.
They're going to make it easier.
for you.
I love using like ChatGPT and like cloud AI.
Oh,
They
me
actually
too.
really do help with everything.
They do. They do. And they make it easier. And it's also, I like to always think about the positive side of things. And it's just, if you just sit down for a second and think about, and even in my years of decades that I've lived, and I feel like sound like such an old person, but I'm just saying, I've seen so much. I have seen a generation when I didn't even have a phone in my hand, and I have a system that actually connects me and lets me do everything and anything that I want to do. And it's just, that's, nobody taught me any of those. I learned along the way, and look at me. So it's like we have it in us to be able to learn and adopt and go with the flow and run with the society. But we just have to understand that we have to run with where the world is going and not necessarily where the other person is going, because we shouldn't be comparing with someone else. We should always just be acknowledging like how far we've come along and then how far we can continue to go.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you said that you remember a time where people didn't have cell phones. Do you remember
Wow.
when cell phone bills used to show you like every single text message that you used to send and
Yeah.
receive?
Yep. I remember that. Every time you send a message, there comes another message. This is how much you
And you were
charge.
charged like
Or
25 cents,
yeah,
and now you just
exactly. And look at this now. It's just like
see the phone bill.
we're not saying that we're burned out because of that,
Yeah.
even though it does play a bit. The cell phone plays, and when we talk about burnout, the cell phone plays huge role in it.
Mhm.
It's or the amount of okay, I take it back. It's not cell phone. It's how you use cell phone
Yeah.
plays huge role in, or cell phone or digital media or whatever you want to call it, plays a role in it. But we don't, because it's teaching us something new every day. So we don't want to get rid of it. You have to reflect and be open to accept.
Yeah, and going back to just like the way that you use cell phones, there's some believe that technology is evil and there's others that believe that technology is good. I just believe that technology is, and it is what you make it. So if you want to live a mindful life while still being connected to the digital worlds, there's a way to do that. And it's called
Yeah.
balance. It's called learning to
Yep.
disconnect. It's called rewiring our brains to not
Yeah.
get so attached, which is hard because these devices are designed to keep us locked in.
Exactly. And also, this is where I'm going to bring it back to, you have to know yourself. And
Mhm.
one of the things for me too, is just I had to understand what are the things that actually distracts me a lot of the time. And when I understood, and cell phone was one of the things. If I just have it on my table, I could be typing in the email and then be like, nope, let me pick in and see a notification came in, or something else that I wanted to do on myself because it was just right there.
Yeah.
So I started to what I started to do, and this is a little change, that when I start my work specifically, and I have myself on my hand right now, but some of the days, or if I'm getting into a meeting or something, I will just put it into a drawer. Like it's still with me, but it's I have my notification turned off and I put it in a drawer so that I don't see it in front of me
Yeah.
from me. So it's like you have to understand those stress points or those distraction points, and then you have to figure out your system that is going to work for you, that can help you come out of it or can help you stay focused, because focus is lack of focus can really, it's also one of the kind of like the early signs that can burn you out.
Yeah. And it reminds me of a conversation that we had a few months ago when you brought up Carl Newport's what
Yeah, Newport. Yeah,
Newport's his concept of deep
Newport.
work.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that?
He wrote a book, Deep Work, and then I think recently came out with another book, Slow Productivity. I've read Deep Work like A through Z, and it is amazing book. But the concept that he really talks, the thing that he talks about is he's given a lot of examples of a lot of these like authors and other like successful people and some of the achievements that they've had. And he talks about these people used to lock themselves in a room and just sit down and do the focus work. So even he gives his own example too. I probably do 4 or 5 hours of work in a day, but I am very focused. And that is usually equivalent to someone that is probably doing 9 or 10 hours of work in a day. But that's the difference. If you can't do focused work, you have to understand what distracts you, eliminate those distractions, do the focused work, because that's where you mind my language, but get shit done, basically. That's where it's going to help you get those things done. And then you're going to feel productive and you're going to feel like I've achieved something, and and that's going to motivate you automatically to do next work. Because if you're productive and you feel like you've accomplished something and you're motivated, you want to do. It's not about I'm doing more work, I have so much on my plate. It's more about let me prioritize. I'm going to do the focus work here, and I'm going to achieve this that I wanted to achieve. His concept is pretty simple. It's just eliminate those distractions, do the focus work, and that's going to help you. And that's focus work can be different for different people. But if I have back-to-back meetings again in the morning, then in the afternoon, I want to maybe schedule some focus time for myself when I can actually unwind and focus on what are the things that I need to get done. Because otherwise, if you have so many meetings throughout the whole day, you're gonna feel like you're burned out by the end of the day. And the next day, you're not gonna be so productive because you're still burned out the day before. So it's a combination, and then introducing other things throughout the day. It's also part of his deep work. It's like when you're doing the deep work, meditation is a big part of it. Going on walks or taking those breaks and things like that. So I recommend reading that book, or he has, I think, YouTube channel too. So check out his work on YouTube channel too, Call Newport. But I think it's just the concept of focused work and lack of, if you can eliminate distractions from your work, that can really help you. But for that, you have to first understand what are your distractions. And so I think that's where you want to start, is to understand really what distractions are and how often do you get distracted? Because I can tell you, so many of us are probably typing an email and a Slack or a Teams message or something comes up and we're like, oh, let me go there real quick. And according to research, not my research, I read it online, it says once your focus is distracted, it takes about 23 minutes for you to get back into the focus zone. So imagine you're typing an email, and if you're distracted 4 times while you're typing that email, you can't even finish that email in 2 or 3 hours. I just one example I'm using here based on what I read on as a research. That's the thing. Versus if you can just take 5 minutes of undistracted time and just finish that email, how accomplished you're going to feel by the end of the day.
That's absolutely insane to think about it. But I do remember another research that basically said that we actually don't know how to multitask.
There's no such thing as
There's no such thing.
I don't believe in it. I would go to debate for days if someone asked me to. There's no such thing as multitask. Because it's not multitasking, it's multi-focusing, basically. Yeah. You're dividing your focus into 5 different things. And it's actually funny. I think it's Scott Newport or something that talks about it. Imagine you completing one task 200% in 1 hour versus doing 5 tasks, but all of them at 20%. What's better?
The 200%.
Exactly.
Okay.
You feel, I've done this 5 things in this, but it's like, how much were you really present for those 5 things that you were doing versus I've just accomplished this one thing, but I was fully present there. I was fully focused and I've achieved this. So I know this is a podcast and people are probably going to hate me for to say this, but I don't like multitasking. Yeah, you can be like talking and doing something, but you're one example, driving and you have a podcast on or you have a music on. I will tell you that the minute you start singing the song or you actually listen to the podcast and it's registering to your head, you will forget. If you sit down and try to remember that, you won't remember what road you were on or what sign you saw or where you were, because your mind can only focus on one thing at a time. And that's the easiest example I can give. Something to think about.
That is something to think about. Wait, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I've gone back and forth on this exercise on my own, and I don't remember it because you can only focus on one thing. And there's so many examples of it. There's 2 conversations going on. You can only remember one. Now that there's like a whole thing about your unconscious mind, conscious mind, and all those things. But what I'm trying to get to is you can only focus on one thing. So why not focus on one thing fully? Yeah. And you can accomplish that and then get to the next thing.
I also feel like the attempt to multitask could also lead you to burning yourself a little bit because you're being pulled in so many different directions. You're only giving each thing 5%. So you're not hitting that fulfillment or that ability to accomplish the single thing because you're not accomplishing any of those things.
Exactly. Then, because at the end of the day, it's only going to make you feel like I haven't accomplished anything. You could have had 9 hours or 8 hours full of work where you've done so much work, but at the end of the day, you're like, I don't feel productive. Yeah. I don't feel like I've really accomplished anything. And a lot of the time it's because your attention was getting divided to so many things. Your context switching happens over and over. And you're just like, okay, I don't even, at the end of the day, it's don't even know what I'm doing right now. It's just, and again, it's easier for me to sit here and say this and then for someone to figure this out. But it's just, I've seen it firsthand. I've gone through with it. I've researched it. I've learned it. I've read about it. I've done all of those things. And I can tell you, you have to realize that. I don't think I have fully figured out how I can stop. I still get distracted. I'm not going to lie. It's there. It's everybody. I don't have a perfect recipe figured out, but it's at least I know that I can acknowledge it when it happens, because then I can stop myself and be like, okay, I need to rewind myself and do something else. I need to change something because I see those early signs and it's happening right now.
So in terms of like work-life balance, what trends do you see happening and like how should organizations prepare for them?
Oh, I wish I can tell you for all organizations, obviously not, but it's like, I think this is where I feel like I talk about there's one life, there's different roles that people play with it. And I think the balance needs to come. You need to acknowledge and understand that people are going to be at a different levels. Even in two-person living similar lives and doing the same work can have two different. It's just they're going to be at two different energies and reason values and whatever that may be. So I could tell you smaller organizations is going to be different versus the bigger organizations. But I think the biggest thing that organizations can learn and see is just to not continue to invest in this human first mentality, because that is what's going to help get through, especially with the change that is coming at with AI and everything, digital world. It's just, and communication is going to be the key. It's just as companies evolve, as individual evolves, organization, the culture is going to evolve. What used to matter yesterday is not going to matter tomorrow. How can you communicate that openly so that that communication, that dialogue is there? Because that is the only way that is going to help. And I think one of the things that my company does too, which I could get as an example, they'll take surveys. When we have annual kickoff, there's a survey that we've done. So as an employee, participate on those things, because that's where you can put your voice out there and say. Now, just because you say it and complain and did something doesn't mean that it's going to get fixed tomorrow, but at least you have contributed towards that. So I think that's where I would say the best way is to communicate, be open, be vocal, and learn your own stressors, because just because the company is going in one direction, you can't force yourself to go in that direction, and vice versa. So you just have to understand yourself, and lastly, focus on what you can control.
Yeah. And remember, you're just human.
Exactly. We're all on.
So this is the last question, because believe it or not, we did get through a lot of the questions here. What are 2 things you want listeners to take from our chat today?
Oh, I feel like we have such a good conversation. And the 2 things I would say is, I think one of the biggest things is I advocate about building your system. So I'm going to mention, take that away, reflect, figure out what's working for you, what's not working for you, and then build those habits, build your system. And I think the last thing that you said, it's just, we're all just human at the end of the day. So just understand that we are human, other people are human too, and we're working with them. So just give yourself grace, give yourself space, and do the things like every day. I think that's one of the biggest advices. Just figure out a balance where at least there's one thing in a day that you're doing that makes you happy, actually happy. Because if you can't figure that out, believe me, a lot of the problems, a lot of the things, a lot of the stress can shift. I won't say that'll be eliminated completely because everybody's life different, but let's just do something that makes you happy.
No, and all of your tips and strategies are very true, but they're also very actionable.
Yeah.
So that simple step of find what makes you happy and just do it. That's so simple. It's just sitting with yourself and remembering that last time you randomly smiled for nothing. What were you actually smiling about?
Exactly. And do that. It's that little bit of a reflection is going to take you a long way.
Yeah.
Do that. Spend on me time this weekend if you can, if you're listening, and just figure that out and see if you can implement that in your life.
Well, Ashna, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of PausePoint, the podcast. Our debut season is packed with enlightening conversations featuring thought leaders, burnout prevention specialists, authors, and mindfulness coaches. Together, we delve into topics like effective stress management, burnout, goal setting, and transformative mindfulness techniques. PausePoint is dedicated to enhancing well-being by seamlessly integrating mindfulness into your daily routine. Our innovative tool syncs with your calendar to identify optimal times for mindfulness breaks, making mindfulness an integrated part of your day without disrupting your schedule. Your journey to a more balanced life starts here. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to visit pausepoint.io to begin your mindfulness journey today. We look forward to having you with us next time.